in studio, I have Sher Singh from Migrant Rights Network. Welcome, Sher.
Thank you, Jeev. Thank you.
So we thought we would do a very quick Facebook Live today about our upcoming protest on this Saturday. So that's Saturday, 22nd of July. As we've done so many Facebook Lives, podcasts, livecasts about exploitation of our migrant workers who are on work visas attached to employers, and then our overstayers who are being exploited very badly. And people who've been left out of pathways to residency, whether they are onshore or offshore. So all these issues, what they do is they lead to exploitation of migrant workers in one form or another. So we've combined everything, and so we're going to hold a protest this coming Saturday, and it will be in Papatoetoe at 1 p.m. So it'll be at Papatoetoe Recreation Grounds. That's on Great South Road in Papatoetoe, Auckland. And those of you who know Papatoetoe really well, the grounds are opposite Quality Mini Bazaar. It's an Indian grocery store supermarket. It's across the road from there, and there is also lots of car parking around there. Sorry, and there's street parking as well. So Sher, if we maybe just share with our viewers what kind of horror stories we've been hearing recently from people who are being exploited. I think, especially for people who don't know, and people who are not migrants themselves. They're from this country and they may not realize what suffering migrants go through. So, if you want to share the kind of stories you've been hearing and migrants who've been contacting you and you've been visiting them as well, I think that would be a good start.
Yeah. First of all, hello, kia ora, namaste, assalamu alaikum और प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल. देखो जी, we have been campaigning for the migrant community for quite some time now. Mm-hmm. And the main issue that we are focusing this protest on is the visa attachments. And since the accreditation visa has been open, there has been a lot of migrants who have been called into this country where they have been charged tens of thousands of dollars and promised work, promised a good life, promised accommodation, yet they're not given anything. We've had people waiting at the airport, stranded, left stranded. They have no relatives here, just with a piece of paper, which is a false documentation of a work offer letter, accommodation. Everything is fake, and they're just standing there and they do not know where to go. New Zealand Immigration had introduced this accreditation visa, so this would have a good impact on the unemployment, and especially the sectors where they were looking for employees. However, there are some employees who have misused this, and companies which are only allowed up to 10 employees have sponsored up to 70 people under one employer. So there's many stories, and we've had a lot of feedback from the local community too, and those migrants, not just the new ones, the older ones that have been here for the last 6-7 years. They are losing jobs because they want to hire the newcomers.
Yeah, because they can pay them a lot less and they can abuse them a lot more.
Yes.
Compared to someone who's been here for a while and is more aware of their rights and is more likely to challenge the employer.
Yeah. So this is the reason why we're calling this protest, and I'm making a request for those, regardless of whatever visa you're on, you're a citizen, you're a work visa, you're a student, come and show solidarity in this, because indirectly this whole scam, I'm calling it now, is it's got an impact on everyone. Yeah.
I just want to share that we will repeat the same information in Punjabi as well, as a lot of our viewers and a lot of people who reach out to us speak in that language. So we'll do that towards the end of the live cast. So at Migrant Workers Association as well, we've been getting identical to what Sher you have just described, and in the last few months there hasn't been a week, I should say, there hasn't been a day that goes by when we don't get contacted by exploited workers. And they're coming directly to us. They are going to citizens advice bureaus and sometimes coming through that channel. And earlier today I was speaking to the person who heads all of the citizens advice bureaus in the country. So she's from the national office in Wellington, and they are experiencing exactly the same as what you and I are. And they were also, the head she was basically saying that, okay, they people who are brave enough, they make a complaint to MBIE, to Immigration New Zealand, and they move on to the 6-month open work visa, the migrant exploitation work visa, but then they can't find a job, and they don't have money to feed themselves. They don't always have a good place or a suitable place to live. So she was like, why can't the government pay them the benefit, the unemployment benefit like we do? And I was, yes, exactly right. And she was saying, like, this is a violation of basic human rights. We had this quite a long discussion where we'll be working with the Citizen Advice Bureau head and also possibly involving the Human Rights Commission, the Race Relations Commissioner, see if we can get something. It's all very well to give them the open work visa for 6 months. What are they supposed to do after that? So, there's a lot of work to be done here. And then we've also had many people come through the community law centres. So that's another good resource we have in every city, town, in most suburbs in Auckland as well, where you have your local law community centre, and they can provide you help. They can provide you guidance without any charges. So, it's a voluntary service, but they can't always represent you. But anyway, it's a good start for people to get to know their rights. So a lot of people have been coming through that avenue as well. So it's just, and then last week I was invited as a guest to a forum. It's the Immigration Reference Group that regularly meets with Immigration New Zealand heads. So the various teams within Immigration New Zealand, they have their senior managers. So this reference group meets with them to share with them whatever their concerns are as legal professionals, so that then the officials at INZ can try to take that on board and make changes in discussion with the Minister of Immigration, of course. So I was invited to do a presentation on migrant exploitation on this accredited employee work visa. And I shared in about 10-15 minutes. I kept it very brief, but I shared quite a lot. I shared at length with them exactly the sort of conditions these workers face and the suffering and the pain, and how they are poached and trapped by the employers and the offshore agents. And they listened to me very patiently, and at the end of my presentation they were like, you have just confirmed what we have started to see. So they are aware, and so again they have shown interest in that they want to keep working with us. So through that channel we are trying to advocate that the 6-month visa be made at least 1 year. 1 year. And then I guess ultimately we don't want to have visas that attach employers to workers, or workers to employers rather. So that would be a political decision to be made by the government. But it helps to speak to the officials, because they because the Minister of Immigration seeks advice from the officials. So we're trying to feed the same information in so many different ways so that it gets... sorry about that. Apologies. Yeah. So there's much work to be done. And then also what we suspect, as we've discussed privately, Shir, is that this is another batch of overstayers in being prepared because of our regressive immigration policies, not because of the migrants' fault. And that also should tell people this is how mostly we've had previous overstayers. So that's how it ties in with our demand of like amnesty for all overstayers. And government also needs to make those pathways to residency better and easier so we don't have overstayers in the future. So these are the kinds of demands we're making, and we will be speaking to these demands on Saturday at the protest in Papatawi. We encourage you to join us with families, with friends. Even if you're not affected, it's important that you come and support people who are voiceless. We have to become the voice of those voiceless people.
And also, Aditi, I want to add, I've had a few employers contact me where they are genuinely following the accreditation, and they said, look, sure, we've got we can have 3 workers, we've sponsored them, they're coming here, we're paying them more than minimum wage. So why should we be part of this? I said, then come and join us. If you're genuine, there are few who are following the rules, and obviously they shouldn't get blamed for it. So I said, if you guys are really concerned about this, come and join us.
Yeah, so we are not against all employers. It's only those few dodgy, bad ones who are abusing and exploiting the migrant workers. So if we explain it like this, it actually, when employers exploit their workers, it not only does it make things difficult for that one worker or those workers, it makes things difficult for all the other workers, and it makes life difficult for other employers as well.
Industry.
Yeah, the whole
industry.
Thing. Yeah. So it's what happens is if some employers are paying their workers a lot less, that kind of lowers the work conditions and wages for all the other workers, whether they are on visas or not. So it lowers the standard, it lowers the bar. So, and basically this is actually what's happened with this new accredited employer work visa compared to the previous visas, which were also attached to employers, but there were more checks and balances in place. So this is how a lot of the professionals in the immigration law sector feel, that this new accredited employer work visa is based on such a high trust model that it has just lowered the standards generally. And that's what the rogue employers are taking advantage of. So I guess going forward, we will keep working with Immigration New Zealand officials as well about, what we experience and then what we feel, based on our experience, the solution should be. I
just want to add to, the government had said that, they are looking at the amnesty for overstayers. And obviously, if they are delaying the system or delaying the announcement or using any excuse, it's our duty to put pressure on the government. There's a lot of comments coming in about, amnesty for overstayers. Okay, the announcement was to be made last month. It didn't come. So what are we going to do? We're not just going to sit on our backsides and wait for the announcement. It's our duty to take a stand. So this rally is a good opportunity for you to come forward and show your frustration that if the government has considered something, they need to stand by it. And all migrants need to come together and raise our voices once again. And Raw Tyson, I really understand where you're coming from, but like I said, we can't just sit here and wait for the government to make false promises again and again. So we have to take charge.
Roy Tyson is saying, how about we share our protest to immigration minister? We usually invite the ministers and people from government, other MPs to our protests. So we will be sending out the invitation for this one as well by tomorrow. We've already sent out a press release. There's a Facebook event. So the government watches what we do, so they'll know anyway. But out of courtesy and politeness, we will send them direct invitations as well.
And another good thing is that migrants are coming forward. They are talking to the media. So they are sharing their stories, their struggles. And this is going to build a lot of pressure on the current government. So if more migrants, we just need more migrants to come. If you don't want to give your name, you give it confidentially, you give your statements, you give your interviews. That will only build pressure on the government.
Actually, today, RNZ, Radio New Zealand, the national radio station of this country, they launched a special unit. It's called Indo RNZ or something like that, Indo Kiwi RNZ. So it's going to specifically cover issues related to Indian and Chinese communities here. So that's another outlet, and they have they actively want to cover these issues that we face.
So that's a victory. I consider that as a victory. A media taking such step which they've never done before.
And that's government-funded channel. That's state media.
Exactly.
So yes.
So all these little things, we need to consider these little things, and with these little wins are our wins. And a lot of people say, what happens with all this advocacy? What happens with all these protesting? Here's a really good example Numem has given you. That look, RNZ has never done this before. They are going to dedicate a special team for the migrant workers.
And the journalists within that team are migrants themselves who have done the journey.
That is excellent.
So they will have a better connection and better understanding of when we take these issues to them, and they will publish those stories. You can go and check out their website is already live, and they've got some stories on there. Not about exploitation yet, because they've only just started interviewing people as of last week. So those stories will appear, I'm sure, in the next few days. Here's a comment on your timeline, Sher. Kay Sid saying, "Wow, be well. Good to see you, Anu and Sher, after a very long time. I'm appalled to hear that this is occurring even now. Any South Side support?" The protest, Kay, is actually in Papatoe. So, we thought...
South Side, is the South Island? I think Kay is
does
from
he mean
South Island.
Side?
Yes,
not south of Auckland. Okay,
we will let you know if it's in south of New Zealand. We'll definitely let you know, Kay.
We've actually had one or two other people suggest that as well, that we hold protests in all main centres on the same day, same time, which is a bit of a logistical challenge for us. So we thought, okay, let's do this one here in Auckland, and then going forward, we can, at frequent, regular intervals, we could do different cities. That way, some of us can also go and join there in those cities. And
a lot of the migrant community have been contacting me, and they say, sure, we need to do this, we need to do that. Look, I want to make one thing clear, that the protest is only a start. It's a start to a campaign which we will run for many weeks or even months to come. And it's election year. For us to... We can only hit it now before elections. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. So, again and again, everyone come forward. Papatoe Recreation Grounds, 1 p.m, 22nd, which is this Saturday. See you all there.
So one last thing I want to say in English is that we need to put enough pressure on this Labour government to announce some sort of amnesty, because the National Party and ACT have made it absolutely clear that they will not be entertaining any support for people who do not have visas. So, and it looks likely that Labour is not going to win. National will probably get in together with ACT. So, it has to be this side of the election that we get something out of this government.
Didi, I just want to share one other news, because I work at the airport. I've spoken to quite a few of the other airlines. There are migrants who are starting to get deported. There are migrants who are getting caught at the border and refused entry at the border. Today, I saw 6 migrant men getting refused entry right in the front of my eyes.
So these are people who've just like travelled to New Zealand, but they're not being allowed to enter.
Yeah, so what these accredited employers are doing is like sponsoring these workers here and complaining on them that this person is arriving on false documentation. So what the border security, what the border immigration is doing, stopping them at the border and taking them back.
Yeah, that is just so sad, you know. So they've well and truly set you up and trapped you. So for people who may not know, so having a valid visa is not enough. So the immigration rules of New Zealand are that even if you have a valid visa, you still have to be allowed, you have to be granted entry permission when you arrive at a New Zealand airport. So it's 2 things, a valid visa and entry permission. And staff, border security staff or whatever, I think the immigration New Zealand officials who are based at airports, they have the authority to grant or refuse that entry permission. So just because somebody has a valid visa, they shouldn't just take it for granted that I'm going to get it. Yeah, there's one more thing that you have to go through, the entry permission. That is really, really sad, and that is evil on the employer's part. That
it's evil. I could see the fear today when they were walking right past me. I think they did recognize me, but they wanted to talk to me, but because they were being escorted with the immigration officers and customs, they were just voiceless. They were just looking right into my eye and they couldn't say anything.
And I've had people on the phone in those situations from the airport, and immigration New Zealand staff at the airport, they don't usually speak to anyone else. They will only speak to the person. So even if they wouldn't have allowed them to speak with you. Before we move on to Punjabi, there's one huge victory that we've had today, specifically around Sher Singh, and I want to do justice to that victory, and we will very, very soon do a dedicated live cast where we have our other fellow activists with us as well. It's a huge victory, and it's not while it the most suffering was Sher suffered a lot in the last few years, but it did impact all the activists. So today justice has not only been delivered for Sher but for the rest of us, and it's it should be quite a big deal for those exploiting employers out there, because they tried to shut the entire movement down by preying on one person within our movement against exploitation. So we will do a dedicated live show around that very, very soon.
Thank you. Yeah, since this morning, I've been over the moon, and but hey, it's a commitment. We gotta do this protest, and I've been mixed emotions, Didi, because it's a long fight, happy, sad, but I had promised that we're gonna do this invitation. This live. We have to do it. It's our duty. Yeah. So I'm here, and look. Yeah. Victories do take time. They don't just come overnight. We just have to keep pushing. Yeah,
and we must also acknowledge other supporters with this protest. We've got Unite Union supporting us. So obviously Migrant Rights Network, your organisation, Migrant Workers Association, FAM, Federation of Aotearoa Migrants, and we've got the Aotearoa Tongan Response Group. So Pakilau, Manasi, Maka, Tony, they are on a flight from Wellington, coming back from Wellington to Auckland. So, apologies on their behalf, but the Tongan community, the Pacific Island community will be with us on Saturday there at the protest.
That's great.
Okay, all right. ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਇਹੋ ਹੀ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਸੋ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ. ਸੋ ਇਸ ਸੈਟਰਡੇ ਨੂੰ 22 ਜੁਲਾਈ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ 1 ਵਜੇ ਪਾਪਾ ਟੋਏ ਟੋਏ ਰਿਕ੍ਰੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਸਾਊਥ ਰੋਡ 'ਤੇ ਹੈ, ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਮਿਨੀ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ ਦੇ ਆਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ, ਉੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਇੰਤਜ਼ਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ. ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਕਿਉਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਐਂਟੀ ਐਕਸਪਲੋਇਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ. ਸੋ ਮਾਈਗਰੈਂਟਸ ਚਾਹੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ 'ਤੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਈ ਤਰੀਕਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਈ ਕਿਸਮਾਂ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਸ਼ਣ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਮਾਈਗਰੈਂਟ ਐਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟਡ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਵਰਕ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ 'ਤੇ, ਉਹ ਕਈਆਂ ਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ ਨਕਲੀ ਨੇ, ਏਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਤੋਂ ਡਿਪੋਰਟ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਐਂਟਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋਬ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਸਟ ਕਰਦੀ, ਜਾਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਦਿਨ ਜੋਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਕਰਵਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਨਫੇਅਰਲੀ ਫਾਇਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਇੱਕ 3-4 ਬੈੱਡਰੂਮ ਦੇ ਘਰ 'ਚ 15-15 20-20 ਵਰਕਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਕੋਮੋਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਮਤਲਬ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੁਰੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਨੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਛ ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ ਹਰ ਰੋਜ਼ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਲਸ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵਰਕਰ ਹੈਲਪ ਮੰਗ ਰਹੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ। ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਿਊਜ਼ੀਲੈਂਡ ਵੀ ਜਾਣੂ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਉਹ ਹੱਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨ ਐਡਵਾਈਸ ਬਿਊਰੋ ਨੇ, ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਲਾਅ ਸੈਂਟਰਸ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲੋਕ ਹੈਲਪ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਔਨ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹੀ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਓਵਰਸਟੇਅਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਮਨੈਸਟੀ ਮੰਗ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਵੀਜ਼ਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਐਕਸਪਲੋਇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਠਾ ਸਕਦੇ। ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਰਾਈਟ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿਣਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਓਵਰਸਟੇਅਰ ਨੇ, ਡਿਪੋਰਟ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੁੱਟੋ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ। ਸੋ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਡਿਮਾਂਡ ਆ। ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਟੋਂਗਨ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ, ਪੈਸੀਫਿਕ ਆਈਲੈਂਡ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਉਹ ਜੁਆਇੰਟ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਬਾਕੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਮੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਵੀਜ਼ੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਖੋਲ੍ਹੋ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਟੈਚ ਕਰੋ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਪਾਥਵੇਜ਼ ਟੂ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਕਰੋ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਓਵਰਸਟੇਅਰ ਹੋ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਸਕੇ। ਸੋ ਮੇਨ ਕਾਰਨ ਸਾਡਾ ਉਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਬਣ ਸਕੀਏ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸ਼ੇਰ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ?
ਦੇਖੋ ਜੀ, ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਆ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ 'ਚ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲਸ ਆ ਰਹੇ। ਹੁਣ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਫੋਨ ਆਇਆ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਦਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ 90 ਡੇਜ਼ ਕਲੋਜ਼ ਪਾਉਣਾ। ਉਹਨੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੰਟਰੈਕਟ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇਰਾ ਕੰਟਰੈਕਟ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਵਾਂ ਸਾਈਨ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨੇ 90 ਡੇਜ਼ ਕਲੋਜ਼ ਪਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਸੋ ਓਬਵੀਅਸਲੀ ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ 90 ਡੇਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਮਿਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ, ਔਰ ਉਹ ਤੋਂ 25-30 ਲੱਖ ਰੁਪਈਆ ਲੈ ਲਿਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਭੇਜ ਦਿਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੰਦੀਆਂ ਚਾਲਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਅੱਜ ਮਾਈਗਰੈਂਟ ਬੋਰਡਰ ਤੋਂ ਰਿਫਿਊਜ਼ ਹੋਏ। ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਬਸ ਇਹੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿਰਫ ਔਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਈਗਰੈਂਟ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਉਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਫੈਕਟਡ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਫੈਕਟਡ ਨੇ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ 5-5, 6-6 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੋਬਾਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਰੱਖ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਅਫੈਕਟਡ ਨੇ। ਬਿਫੋਰ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੀ ਕੰਮ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ, ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਹੱਲਾ ਬੋਲ ਦਈਏ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਓਵਰਸਟੇਅਰ ਭੈਣ ਭਰਾ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਮੰਨਦਾ ਕਿ ਜੂਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਣੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਬਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਈ। ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਬੈਠਣ ਦੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਹੱਥ 'ਚ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ ਲਈਏ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਬੋਲੇ ਕਦੇ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ। ਔਰ ਦੂਸਰੀ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 'ਚ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਲੱਗ ਇਹ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਲੇਬਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਜਿੱਤੇਗੀ, ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਆਏਗੀ। ਔਰ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਨੇ ਔਨ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਓਪਨਲੀ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਓਵਰਸਟੇਅਰਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਪਾਈਏ, ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਦੇਣ ਕਿ ਐਮਨੈਸਟੀ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਉਹ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਦੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਕੁ ਸਮਝ ਹੈ, ਅਗਰ ਲੇਬਰ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੰਨੀ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟੀਕਲੀ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਲਈ ਕਾਫੀ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਨਡੂ ਕਰਨਾ। ਸੋ ਕਮ ਸੇ ਕਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹੰਬਲਾ ਮਾਰੀਏ, ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਕਰਵਾ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਪੋਜ਼ੀਟਿਵ ਅਨਾਊਂਸ ਕਰ ਦੇਣ। ਚਾਹੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਬਣਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦੀ, ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਨਾ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਏਗਾ। ਉਹ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਜਨਰਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਜੋ ਅਨਾਊਂਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਏ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਹੀ ਜੜੋਂ ਉਖਾੜ ਦੇਣ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ 'ਚ ਕਦੀ ਘੱਟ ਹੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਇਸ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ। ਸੋ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਮੰਗਾਂ ਮਨਵਾ ਲਈਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ।
ਮੰਗਾਂ ਦੀਦੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਮਨ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਪਾਇਆ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਕਾਫੀ ਆ, which is a good thing। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਡੈਡੀਕੇਟਡ ਟੀਮ ਵੀ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਹੈ।
RNZ ਨੇ
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਸੋ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਆ, ਪਰ we just need to keep the pressure on, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਹੁਣ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦਮ ਚੱਕਾਂਗੇ 22 ਤਰੀਕ ਨੂੰ, ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ। ਉਦੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਘਰ ਬੈਠ ਜਾਣਾ। ਇਹ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊਸਲੀ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ ਬੈਕ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਚੱਲੂਗਾ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ। ਔਰ
ਇਹ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊਸਲੀ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਆਕਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਹ ਹਰੇਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋਕ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਟਰੰਗੇ 'ਚ ਕਰੋ, ਵੈਲਿੰਗਟਨ 'ਚ ਕਰੋ, ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਪਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਥ ਦਿਓ, ਏਕਤਾ ਬਣਾਓ। 22 ਤਰੀਕ ਇਸ ਸੈਟਰਡੇ ਨੂੰ 1 ਵਜੇ ਪੈਪਰਟੋਈ ਰਿਕ੍ਰੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਗਰਾਊਂਡਸ ਆਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ ਟੂ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਮਿਨੀ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸਾਰੇ 1 ਵਜੇ ਜੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੋ। ਆਓ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਹੱਲਾ ਬੋਲ ਦਈਏ ਅਸੀਂ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ, ਐਬਸੋਲੂਟਲੀ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ। ਔਰ ਜਲਦੀ ਅਗਲੇ ਕੁਛ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਡੈਡੀਕੇਟਿਡ ਲਾਈਵ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਰਕਲ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਬੜੀ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਿਕ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦੀ। ਉਹ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਸੀਗੀ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਿਕ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਆਇਆ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਆ। ਔਰ ਉਹ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਵੀ ਜਨਤਕ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ। ਉਹ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਦਾ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਕਸਪਲੋਇਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਪੂਰੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ 'ਚੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ 'ਤੇ ਪਿਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਟ ਡਾਊਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਹੋਏ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਅੱਗੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀਆਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਘਿਨਾਉਣੀਆਂ ਚਾਲਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਮੁਹਾਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਚੱਲੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ, ਇੱਕ ਮੁਹਿੰਮ ਲੈ ਕੇ, ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਚੱਲੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਇੱਕ ਲਾਈਫ ਲੌਂਗ ਕਮਿਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਘਿਨਾਉਣੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਹਾਰ ਦਾ ਸਾਹਮਣਾ ਕਰੋਗੇ। ਸੋ ਉਹ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ।
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ।